do it. All right, as we wait for some people to come on, welcome to Black Girl Say Something, where this black girl has something to say. And we just gonna do a quick major plug because Top Notch Eyewear has the sale. By the time this airs over on YouTube, the sale might be over, but you never know. Still check topnotcheyes.com and you can definitely get into it. 65% off all frames. So y'all know anytime I'm going to do my podcast, I got a major plug in my business, my small business that is practically going out of business because of tariffs. Anywho, also I'm Dr. Appleton. If you're interested in the professional development courses, we have racial disparities in healthcare. Healthcare is politics, and those are 25% off until June 8th. And there's a new class that will be emerging. It is a course catered to young healthcare professionals who want to navigate being a healthcare professional in social media spaces. So look out for that. That will be dropping soon. As we wait for our guests to come on, I do want to take the time to talk about a number of things. And also be sure to follow me because I'm going to get back on live later doing my nails, my gel nails. I took them off earlier. And so I'm going to get back on live after I get off with my guests. I'm going to do my nails and have another little chit and chat. So, anywho, welcome in. Don't forget to grab your daily heart me. Let's set a little goal here. And we're going to have a good talk. Thank you. We're going to have a good talk. Hey, she ready? I'm looking forward to it because is this the last Thursday of the month? I think it is. So we've been going live every Thursday for the month of May. I've been going, if I could be honest with y'all, I've been going live every Thursday since 2025 started. So going live every Thursday. Yes, our guest is here. I'm going to bring her up and I'm going to get started. Let me finish this statement. I'm going to get started in just a little bit. We're going to wait for more people to come on. So y'all share out the live. Let's get more people to come on up. And then we're going to invite our guests on to the live. And y'all can hear me, right? But I've been going live every Thursday since the year started. Let's go back a little bit. I've been going live. I went live for the first 12 weeks of 2025, right? Because I was teaching racial disparities in healthcare. And then to keep that momentum going, I was doing story times. And for the month of May, because it's Mental Health Awareness Month, I decided to go live and host just Black women. I feel like a lot of times what people don't know about Black Girl Say Something is it's a space for Black women where we can come together and talk and chit and chat. I'm a mom. I'm a highly educated, overqualified Black woman. And if you know, you know, we have to work 1,000 times harder than any of our counterparts, right? In a lot of spaces and in a lot of ways. And so far we covered getting out of survival mode with Dr. Brooke. We spoke with Indigo, where we talked about the writer's wound. Last week we spoke about I just went live just chatting, right? Because I be having something to say. And then we went live with Coach T, and we talked about being a mother and how having a teenage daughter ain't so bad, and what we want to be able to carry on not necessarily the legacy, but what are some things we look forward to dispelling the myths about being a mom to a teenage daughter, and also being a mom to a son as well, and raising emotionally well Black men in society. And so that is the reality of it all. And so we have our guest coming up, Miss Godiva Goddess. She's coming on up. And while we wait for her to come up, hey.
Hey.
Hey, while she's up here, y'all, let me tell y'all something. If they don't know nothing about me, I always preach about the power of TikTok. Make social media social again. We literally met on an invite type situation here on TikTok and kind of been social media buddies, I guess, so to speak. And the reality is I enjoy her content. She's a mom. I'm a mom and we Black girls. And I was like, okay, this is cute. Right. And we got on live one day. I think she was like looking for people to battle, and we got on the invite. And me, y'all, I'm very particular about who I let in the invites. If they don't look like me, I be declining. I ain't even gonna hold you. That's just how I roll. And I seen it with some Black women. I was like, oh, I ain't never get this before. And they came in and they listened to what I had to say. I listened to what they had to say, and it was like a really good time. And so she's been kind of joining the lives, and I see her content. And so here we are. And I was like, girl, well, next time I'm gonna go live, you need to come up what you want to talk about. And the reality is, I was like, oh, I like the topic that she chose. So I'm going to pass it over to her in just a second. So, Godiva Goddess, tell us a little bit about you and what we're going to be discussing tonight.
So, just to tell you a little bit about me, right now I am a lead project manager for a security company. I do have two children. I'm originally from Virginia, but I relocated to Charlotte 10 years ago now because my daughter's 10. I moved when she was only 4 days old. Right. And then my son is 17. He's going into his senior year of high school. So, best of both worlds. I got the boy, I have the girl. I've been transitioning a lot career wise. I first started out in college admissions recruiting. I actually started that when I was 19 years old. Had no idea that it was going to elevate me to corporate recruiting and then to what I got my degree in, which is a business degree with a concentration in project management.
Oh, that's cool. See, that's what's up. Okay. So you say you have the best of both worlds, and so do I. I have the daughter first and then the son. And my son is also 10, so he's graduating fifth grade this week. Yeah, he's going to sixth grade, and he's been telling me like he probably gonna skip a grade because they do go to a K through 12 school. So I'm like,
Okay.
oh, okay, we'll see what happens tomorrow at the award ceremony. But I'm like, I'm just happy he had a good last run in elementary school. But you wanted to get on here, and I think it's something that we both can identify with and discuss is how to not let your childhood trauma affect your parenting.
Yes.
How to not let your childhood
That's
trauma affect your parenting. So I think this is gonna be a good one tonight.
Yeah, that's something just near and dear to my heart. It's stuff I've been through in childhood. I'm not afraid to talk about it. Of course, at one point in time, I didn't want to talk about it. I was still so emotional, angry, not even realizing it was trauma. I
Right.
just felt like it was a normal thing. That's what you hear your friends, some friends go through, some other families, etc. And then becoming a parent, you also don't realize that what you went through as a child, it does affect your parenting style, your relationship with your kids, and more. So, yeah, I felt like it would be a great topic for us to discuss.
Yes. So the funny thing I always like to say, as somebody who's been through therapy, I don't want to say it's safe to assume that you've been through therapy, but if you have been through therapy, I think the common thread that I find amongst people who have been through therapy is that a lot of our life we live we think is normal, and then we find out that's actually not normal.
Right.
And so the reality is people often use the word trauma in place of something traumatic that happens, right? But there was an episode I recorded of the podcast where I talk about how you are not your trauma, and your trauma essentially is not just the maybe the physical abuse or something like that. Like for me, the trauma was I didn't know one time we was homeless. Like we was driving around in a U-Haul looking for a place to stay because we were homeless for like a week. And I'm like, oh, I'm telling the therapist this like this is normal. She's like, yeah, that's pretty traumatic. So
Right.
that's why, how does that affect my parenting? I'm always thinking about the stability of it all, right?
Right.
To make sure that once I had my second child, I was like, oh, I gotta buy a house. There's no reason to be moving around here, place. We've been here 10 years. I'm somebody, once I plant my feet on the ground, I don't be going nowhere because stability is key. But that's a trauma response, right? Even though it's positive, it's still a trauma response.
Absolutely. And some of the things I thought about is you become overwhelmed or just kind of triggered by your own children and
Ooh,
not realizing the things that they do or how they act. It They're just being a normal child. They're just being a normal, person, a human being that's actually going through the same life course that you did. The only difference is you're not giving them some of those same traumas or you're not putting them around some of those same experiences. I'll call it
yeah.
experiences. You're not putting them around those experiences that's going to lead to later or further trauma as they become adults. So that's something that it's important. I've seen other mothers also kind of go through that experience where you're angry, you're yelling, you're upset, frustrated, and that overwhelming feeling, which causes you anxiety
Hmm.
also. just seeing your kids and thinking they're doing things wrong, and that's not okay. It's not
Yeah.
okay.
No, sometimes it does require, and I know this is a big topic right now on TikTok, the word accountability. It might trigger people coming to the live. But accountability, I've been saying constantly, you can't be held accountable until you reflect.
Mm-hmm.
And I think sometimes I'll never forget it when a therapist checked me and I was like, I'm so frustrated. I hate being a mom and this, that, and the third, and blah, 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 blah. And she was like, hold on, just take a deep breath. She was at this point we had a relationship, so she was pulling me together. She was like, take a deep breath. It's mental health awareness one. She was like, take a deep breath.
Mm-hmm.
Where are you feeling that in your body?
Right.
Right? Where are you feeling that in your body? And I'm like, I'm telling her where I'm feeling it. And she's like, it's probably it's time to change your parenting style. They're not this age anymore. They're not that age anymore. She introduced me to some parenting style, some chart guide or something. I was like, okay, girl, I'll try it. And I'll get back to you next week and see how it works. But it was just that simple. It was like, oh, sometimes as the parents, because our parents don't want to admit that they the problem.
No. No.
But I'm okay with admitting that I'm the problem.
Yes, I'm the same way. I take accountability. And the funny thing is, Story is I don't yell at my children. Like, if I'm to raise my voice a little bit or whatever the case may be, I guarantee you I said it probably 10 times. Mm-hmm. And everyone gets upset with me. They say, you're gentle parented. All this gentle parenting stuff, that's why your kids don't listen. But my kids do listen.
They listen.
It's just, I didn't realize until I had an experience with my own mom where she was just like yelling. And I was listening like, this is overwhelming. And I didn't realize until she was talking to my daughter. She was like, your daughter doesn't do anything but cry when I try to talk to her. I was like, she's your granddaughter, first and foremost. Second, I don't yell at her. So for her, it's traumatic for you to yell at her. Mm-hmm. I communicate. I was like, the same way I would want someone to communicate with me, same way I have somebody to communicate with her. So she didn't realize, and then it took, what we talked about was accountability. So it took maybe, I think, 2 weeks, and my mom just calls me out of the blue, and because we actually stay 5 hours apart. So she calls me, and she was like, hey, I just called to say I apologize. I was like, what are you apologizing for? She was like, because I didn't understand what you were saying before, but I get it now. I get what you mean by she's not responding to me yelling. I was like, okay, so please talk to my child. No, I appreciated the apology because that's big, especially in my mother's generation. They do not believe.
The hooting and hollering, no, I can't take it. My mom stayed with us. It was around this time last year. She stayed with me probably, her birthday's July 1st. So she stayed with me for a little bit. I gave her like 2 months. And she was like, I need 3. And I'm like, okay. But there was something that I encountered with her where she was talking to my son and my mom would do this thing to me, but I didn't realize that she would do it to me until I had that outer body experience.
Yes.
And she did it to my son where it was like, she asked him a question and he gave her the answer. But then she asked him again and she was like, are you sure? And she asked him again. And so I let it go because later on my son came to me. He's like, Mama, can you please talk to grandma? She does this thing where she asks me something and I tell her the answer and she keep asking me, why does she do that? And so I said, I'll talk to her. But I didn't want to do it like in front of my daughter. So I was like, I'll talk to her later. Mm-hmm. So he didn't go to sleep. He went to sleep with that on his head. He woke up the next morning. He's like, did you talk to her yet? I'm like, yes, I will talk to her. So I end up having a conversation with her. Mm-hmm. And she was like, I didn't realize I did that. And I had to explain to her a little bit about triggers and how that made me feel in that moment. I said, that's something you used to do to me. And I said, my mom had me at 16. So that, she didn't really get to live out her childhood, but also how she was raised. She was also always known as like the liar. And I'm starting to see like growing up, I never told lies to my mom. Like when I tell people that, they're like, what? I never told lies to my mom because to me, it was like, she's going to know. Like, I don't know. I just believed that she had this superpower that she was going to know. So I never told a lie. And even now when she tells people like, oh, she was such a good kid growing up and I had to pull her to the side one time, I was like, did you really believe that? Because I didn't feel like you thought I was a good kid growing up. Mm-hmm. I used to get in trouble for everything.
Right.
And I said, I saw how you had that interaction with him. And she was just like, I didn't even know that I was doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And she was like, I'll be more mindful of that. And you know what? The thing that I can take as somebody who has went no contact, I see people talk a lot about going no contact with their mom. The thing is, you can only like remove the no contact if they do the work, if they show you they've done the work. Because for the first, what, I'm going to say 10 months of my daughter's life, I was no contact with my mom
Okay.
because she was just all over the place in her life. I was all over the place in my life. And,
Mhm.
you know, life circumstances brought us kind of back together and we were still sour.
Right, right.
But the reality is she was able to like take a slowly but surely. Every day I see the accountability. Even now when she grandmas them, she asking
Mhm.
things first, right? She doesn't want to overstep boundaries. She's
Right.
asking them questions. She's asking me questions, and she's mindful of everyone's boundaries, really, and even her own. I even have to find myself telling her, "I don't let them run over you because they will."
Right.
You
Absolutely.
know, but she does. She handles them so. She's an amazing grandma. Like I can't even take that away from her.
Yeah, she looks. She radiant 89 in the comments say a little loud talking ain't never hurt nobody. We loud 100%. And I agree. Our voices can be a little elevated at times. But I do with my daughter. I don't. My son didn't really differentiate or understand the differences, but my daughter does. She was like, it was just the tone of her voice, like how she said it, the inflection. I'm like, I don't even know what that is, but it's one of those
No,
things.
they feel because we allow them the space to feel their feelings. They have the space. It's such an amazing grace to watch how we see our children feel their feelings these days. Because it's like, oh, you really felt that, huh?
That's emotional intelligence starting early.
Yeah,
And
it's
that's something
starting
that people
early.
lack now as adults, and just think our kids are going to have that growing up. But one thing you had said that reminded me of like one of the other traumatic situations, which was molestation. You
Hmm.
hear that a lot, and again, predominantly black households where it's kind of swept under the rug and not talked
Hmm.
about, or it happens, a few people know, and you just don't say anything. It's like the elephant in the room, right?
Yeah.
So it was one of those things that for me, it didn't come out until I was later teens. I would say 19. But by then, I was pregnant with my son. I felt like I'm not a child anymore, so I can say it. And it was, someone that was in the family.
Mm.
And it was my mother's ex husband. So it was one of those things where I was angry. My sister was angry because she was a part of that situation as well.
Wow.
And for the longest, it was denial. Denial. Oh, it didn't happen. One of those things, again, where people just kind of swept under the rug. And, for the longest, that caused friction once I had my daughter. So, for
Mm.
whatever reason, there was a difference and a shift from the time I had my son, which I still wouldn't allow him to be babysat. But
Right.
when I had my daughter, it was just a major difference
Hmm.
about him being anywhere in her presence. You cannot see her. Even her father was like, they came to Charlotte to visit, and he said, he's not welcome in my home. And
Okay.
I,
That's right.
every right, every right to be that way. And it was
Yeah.
just kind of like forcing to be around that person. But that's affected my parenting style because now she hasn't had sleepovers. She's not around people that aren't women. I mean, even
Yeah.
in those situations, I'm still so protective. Where it's like that's one thing I cannot shake.
You know what? I'm gonna have to say you ain't gotta shake it, and that feeling is valid. I'm gonna say you don't gotta shake it. You know why? Because I've come to learn there are certain things that are not pivotal to children's social and emotional development. Sleepovers is not one of them.
No. Even like just watching for a little while, whatever the case may be, you are not to sit on a man's lap.
Right.
And I know what it looks like
All of
when,
those social cues. Yeah, like,
yes,
yeah, all of the social cues. Even now, you know what nobody prepares you for in motherhood? And I experienced this, not necessarily molestation, but to the extent of where I can remember the first time an older man tried to make a pass at me. No
hmm
one prepares you when you have a daughter, when your daughter starts to have that, I don't want to say coming of age, but she's coming into herself, and you see people looking, you see them looking.
hmm
And I've had that talk with her early on. She was about 11. I had
same.
that talk with her. And it's to the point even when me and her, we would walk the dog and you could see them. gawking at her. And it's like, dude, that's a kid.
Right.
I'm gonna say that's a kid. I gotta let you know. And it's like, even when you say that, they still don't turn their eye. It's like, y'all are weird.
Very weird.
Y'all are weird.
And girls now, their bodies are the same as ours
Yeah.
a lot of times. But you can still tell a
That
child.
it's a kid.
You can
Tell it's
still
a kid. I gave the example on one of my videos since we're talking about like men and accountability and stuff. And I said I can give you 100 examples of how I encountered events and things where men didn't hold other men accountable. But one in particular was me and my daughter were walking in the house and she's lagging behind. And I heard a young man say, "Hey, how you doing?" You know how the inflection in their voice. "Hey, how you doing?" And the I guess it was his homeboy. He was like, "Hey, dog, that's a little girl." And he was like, "Oh, my bad." And I'm like, sometimes that's all it really takes.
That's it.
To be able to, not only look out for our own, but look out for others. And so, yeah, it was like that's all it took for him to be like, "Oh shoot, because sir, how you ain't?" Like the kids look like kids in the face, like body or nobody. They look like children. Prepubescent, puberty, it all looks different. But again, they're not. There's no trained eye. There's no trained thought process to want to differentiate. I think it's a want. You got to want to differentiate it because
Right.
that's the reality. And it's unfortunate that sometimes in the way that happens, it does affect our parenting. And is it for the best? Yeah, because I'm gonna keep my baby. I'm gonna keep her close. I told her, I said, "Girl, you ain't even got to be arms length. You gonna be right here in the forearm." She just was joking today. She was like, "Oh, this how I'm gonna be at the little college party." Because when I worked at a university, I worked at an HBCU, and I took her to like a step show. And she just having her mind like, "Oh, I can't wait to go to college. I can't wait to go to college." I said, "Girl, whole time, that's when I'm gonna pack up and move because I'm gonna live in your college town. Okay, so you can come home. You a little tipsy, you a little what? You can come home. Okay, mama gonna be close." So I told her, I say, she joking. She's like, "Yeah, I'm gonna be at the party because we be having dance parties, we be twerking and stuff around the house." So she like, "This how I'm gonna be." And I say, "Yep," and I'm gonna be right there because they invited me to speak. She said, "My girl, what is you doing here?"
I love that. I love that. Though that's the relationship. And how old did you say she was?
15.
15. That's the type of relationship that me and my daughter is building. We have that area where you gonna feel safe here, but
Yeah.
just realizing eyes open no matter wherever you go. And like you said, I want to be right there.
Girl, I'm right there. Like I always think about the fact of all of the hardest times in my life, I didn't have my mom to call. And so I want to be able for my daughter to say, "Dang, I gotta call my mama." Like she with her friends and they somewhere something, something, something. I gotta call my mama.
No matter
Like
what.
that needs to be. I say, you might need to call out. Call your mama.
Exactly. Call me before you call anybody else.
Call me before you call anybody because we gonna figure it out together. Even if I don't know, we will figure it. Two is better than one. I say there is nothing I want you to go through by yourself. And I think another part for me of unlearning some childhood trauma is having, we talked about last week, the mother wound. And we were talking about having the time to like tell your story.
Yes.
Right. So for me, it's like telling my daughter about the birth story and stuff like that. So this way you have in your mind, "Girl, I ain't never getting pregnant because girl, you almost died having me." Almost. Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Girl, you had a baby. Oh yes, that happened. And I had to do it by myself.
Yep.
If you ever have to cross that road and that's a decision you got to make, call your mom.
Pick up your phone and call your mama. And that's why some people feel like sheltering your children from your story is beneficial. And I feel the opposite. I feel like I'm going to tell you everything. So if you ever feel yourself leading into that situation, or
I've been there, done that.
you may not know what it looked like, but you heard it from your mom and you got somebody to call because I'm here. And that's definitely something. And like I said, you feel it with your daughters, but I even have on the flip side, I have that experience with my son as far as not wanting him to exhibit the traits of the things I've been through. It was bad at one point. He's the older brother, so him being around my daughter, I was like, "No, you can't see her unclothed. Like she's a baby."
Yeah.
Oh
yeah.
Okay. But it definitely affected my parenting in that way, and I had to say, "Okay, calm down, chill out. That's your trauma. That is not him. You're putting that on him." But at the same time, I've also taught him things where you look out for, you see it, and I see it in his discussions that he have, because again, he's 17 now. So some of the discussions we have now, I can see that he listened, and okay, you recognize that this is wrong. You recognize that this is not okay.
Yeah.
This is not a way to be or a way to live, or you shouldn't be dating nobody that's 10 years under you. Like, yeah.
Yeah. Because what, is he a senior in high school or he already graduated high school?
He's in high school. He's going into his senior year now.
Going into senior year. Okay. Yeah. So, man, let me tell you something. Them talks is so important. And it's funny because my daughter heard me recording the podcast and she was like, yeah, because you always say whatever I'm learning, you making sure, because she has a little brother. So she's like, whatever I'm learning, you making sure to teach him. And it's like, yeah, they tell daughters to look out for the boys, but I be telling my son, look out for everybody.
Yes.
Look out for everybody, not just the ladies. Look out for the boys too, because that is that's the reality. Those are the open and candid conversations that we genuinely have to have. Even so much so to the point where, that conversation, I had that conversation with my younger brother. He's 14 years younger than me. So he lived with me during a little bit of his high school time. And I remember saying to my mom, I'm like, yeah, he 18 in the 12th grade. He can't be talking to them same girls in 12th grade at 17. And he went to pretty much like a mixed school. So for me, it was like these girls is more attracted to him. I was like, oh no, that's dangerous territory. You got to be careful. You got to be mindful. And then, it was so funny because in that same, not funny, haha, but in that same moment that I'm having that conversation, a week or two later, something happened. I was able to send them an article to read. And I was like, yeah, this young man, the parents ain't one. I think it even destroyed like his college career because of the fact that, he was a black man, a black young man, just getting into college, and he was with a white girl, but he's 18, she's 17. And sometimes that's all the difference that it makes, right? I'm also very intentional about knowing what conversation they have with their friends. So like a lot of what's going on in social media, and I'm like, it's not on social media. She don't have a phone, and I said, it's dumb damn phone. So, and she's cool because it does create different social avenues for her to be able to have other conversations. What would she reading and things like that. So I was like, well, what your friends think about this, that, and the third? Because if you know about it, if they know about it, I know you know about it. Y'all talk about it. And then we kind of have, outside of that, because I had to come to learn not every moment has to be a teachable moment. Sometimes
I'm still learning that.
Hey, you still learning that?
I'm listening first, and then it's like, okay, let's.
It's like, is this the moment to teach?
Right.
That girl told a therapist, she said she had this professor voice that she put on, and that mean I gotta really listen. So I said, well, can you let me know when you want there to be a lesson? Right. And to be quite honest with you, since that conversation, she ain't gave me no room to give a lesson. So I'm just catalog. It's all been cataloged.
So no more lessons. No more lessons.
More lessons, but they do come up in more casual conversations.
I like that.
They do come up in more casual conversations because, again, because my kids they have access to devices. But there's just certain things, certain ways that I implement it so that we can have conversations, whether it be having dinner together, whether it be we have a long car ride, because sometimes we drive about an hour to go see a friend of mine. And so nobody will be on devices, and maybe we might not have the music on because now we're going to cultivate a space to just kind of what y'all want to talk about. What's right? So it comes up in casual conversation. Oh, you remember when I was telling you about X, Y, and Z? Oh, what you think about that? It's
like, that's funny. One of the things my mom used to do to me growing up, though, she would turn the music down and just let the car be silent. She was like, that's the only way you'll talk is if I turn the music off and I let it be silent for a minute, you'll start to say a little something. So I tried that with my kids and it worked.
Okay.
I tried that. If they don't have like AirPods or headset or something like that, it works for sure.
For sure. Okay, so I'm gonna try that. Instead of me asking, I'm gonna just, But also too, they have their separate times of alone time. So it's like I started to get a little irritated because it's like I have very touchy-feely children also. Back to the point of the childhood trauma. My mom wasn't no huggy. My mom wasn't like, I love you, see you later, tomorrow I'm going to work or whatever. So it was very much like to have these children and all they want to do is I had to create boundaries and I had to create space and say, hey, ask me for a hug, just walk up on me, because sometimes I'm overwhelming. They might not know I'm overwhelmed, and that one little touch is the one that's like, okay,
Right.
let's have some space right now.
Right. Absolutely. And then also one of the things from like, even though it's not my childhood trauma, my mother's childhood trauma also, that's something that affected her parents to install on us. So a lot of times with your parents, you might not feel as though you feel they're being harsh or they're being rude or they're being nasty or whatever the case may be. You don't realize that they are humans too. They are people too. They went through something. And honestly, if you think about it or ask your parents their story or just give yourself a moment to understand that they're human.
Mm-hmm.
And once you become a parent, you realize you have trauma and then they have trauma too.
Yeah.
And that trauma just trickle down.
And it just trickled down. And I think it kind of stops here, because for me, not that they won't have their own trauma, but it won't be
Yeah.
so much induced from me, because I have made a space where, like you said, you realize she's human, you realize your parents are human.
Mhm.
I make sure my son and my daughter understand, hey, your mama just a girl.
Yes.
I'm just a girl. I'm gonna cry. I'm gonna get mad. I'm gonna be upset. I'm gonna get angry sometimes. But I have to have safe ways of processing that anger, and they've witnessed some things, because I'm in the middle of a divorce with a restraining order. So there's all of that trauma that they're dealing with, that I'm dealing with, that we're dealing with collectively together.
Absolutely.
So it puts us, Dr. Brooke is on the live. Hey, that's our therapist in the house. So to be able to hold space, to realize forgiving my mom looked like, some people say you can forgive and forget, or forgive and move on. Forgiving my mom looked like, oh, she was just a girl, 16 years old. My daughter about to be 16 next year. I couldn't have,
Imagine.
I had her at 22. So it was like 16 years old with a baby. Oh, girl, you ain't know what you was doing. You was just a girl trying to figure it out. It's okay, boo. But now you grown and you older. Let's move past this. Let's get past it. Even with her coddling my brother, it only took just last year for her to stop doing that. Me and him are 2 years apart. I'm 37. He just probably turned 35. I haven't talked to him in 2 years, because I started to see the type of man that he was becoming. I told my mom, I said, I don't feel safe around him. And funny how them tables turn. Soon as they turn quickly. And she called me and she said he ended up like verbally assaulting her and got very, very much in her face. And I was like, yeah, I don't want to be the I told you so in this, but I started to not feel safe. And because I didn't feel safe, to protect my peace, I had to remove myself from that situation. And that's it. And that's the piece of it all. Because I've experienced men. I was married to one. I know what that feels like already. So I'm like, yeah, I'm good up off that. And she didn't want to admit but it's like, yeah, that's your son. But I said, you know what? Being a great parent is knowing when to disassociate yourself.
Absolutely.
You still their parent, you still his parent, but not all of us are going to turn out the way you think you want us to turn out, because we're adults now.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And that's why I said, me also with my kids, I try to recognize like, hey, you are not perfect. You're not going to be perfect. Just because I went through certain things doesn't mean you're going to go through those certain things. Still doesn't. I'm still overprotective. That's something I haven't shied away from.
Yeah.
It's just understanding that you're going to make mistakes. You're going to figure out your own path, but just be able to recognize certain things. His father was the one I was married to, and it was abusive. Okay. And it was something I did not want him to know, but my ex ended up telling him in the heat of a moment. And I was so upset for a while, because why would you tell him that? I didn't want him to feel like that's something that he has within himself, things of that nature. But at least it opened up the conversation, because I apologized, because one, I didn't want him to find out. Didn't want him to find out that way. I've already had a conversation with his dad, like, don't put your hands on my son.
Yeah.
It's a huge issue. I want you to be somewhere involved. I mean, he's not involved now, but he was involved at some point when he was younger. So now it's just realize that's not you. Woman says no, no means no.
Yeah.
Woman says stop, stop means stop.
Stop means stop.
And just
understanding those social cues too, because sometimes stop has a look. Sometimes no has a look.
Yes, and I'm not physical, so I don't put my hands on no one. However, I know a lot of women do. So if somebody puts their hands on them, restrain them. Don't put your hands on them. Restrain them and get on your phone. You can call Siri and all that other stuff now. Hey Siri, call my mom. Hey Siri,
Hello.
listen.
Yeah, get you
Something.
find a safe way to get up out the
Yes.
situation. And you know, it's funny how life just my life is literally like writes the stories itself. Like I don't know. But it's funny because me and my kids we frequent the library a lot and we just so happened to be at the library and I saw a young man sitting like on one of the library benches in the distance and I'm like, I don't know, for some reason it caught my eye because it looked like he was in distress, but I'm like, y'all get in the car, let's go. Soon as we get in the car, a young lady pulls up and she fussing at him. She fussing at him. He's walking away. And all I could do was just say a little prayer for him because I was like, just give him the strength for him to stay a safe distance, for him to find safety, for her to go because you know he was in the I don't know if they had a fight before I saw him, right?
Right.
The reality is he was trying to get away and I was like, oh, please don't let her run him over with this car because that's what it looked like was about to happen. And is in that same moment I'm having a conversation with my children. I was like, hey, I said to my daughter, hey, Lay, please don't provoke people to anger.
Another teachable moment.
Girl, leave me alone.
That's what I say. I be finding those teachable moments too in the
I was
midst
like,
of
don't
chaos.
provoke nobody to anger. And I'm like, when you find yourself in a situation like that, you want to get to a group of people and get safe and let them know, hey, I'm trying to get away from this situation. Because at the end of the day, some people, it just happens that way.
Yes.
But you want to definitely find a way to get out. And the craziest thing for me is having a son and a daughter because it's like, oh my gosh. And it's not even a tug of war. Just teach them both the same thing.
Yeah.
Your son should know what your daughter should know, and your daughter should know what your son should know. Propaganda, I'm not falling for. Both children are hard to raise.
Very. Just two different spectrums for sure, but the roles have reversed a little bit for girls and boys
Yeah.
that I'm realizing. And it's like, hey, I'm not gonna tell you don't be fast. Of course I don't want you to be fast, but
I'm
look,
telling my son that because what is home? I don't, he's only 10.
yeah.
But the boys, I practically had some hand in raising my little brother. So I raised a son before, if you want to say.
Yeah.
And I would have those talks with my little brother, like, what y'all, and or you hear them on the game, right? Because not necessarily my son, but my little brother when we play the game, it's like, oh, well, that's not funny. Like, that's weird. Why would they say that? Like, you gonna check them on that? So, just kind of behind the scenes already preconditioning him to understand, like, hey, some of those jokes against women are not okay. Some of those things they say about other men, or like, is that how they genuinely feel? Like, some of those things
Right.
are jokes, because behind every joke is some truth.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, let's reel that back.
Yeah, and I feel like for me, like you said, like our children are gonna have some childhood trauma because it's just it isn't
Yeah,
in
whether it be the bully at school, whether
it's
it
not gonna be the
be
same. Right. It's not gonna be the same trauma I had. And that's something that we can pat ourselves on the back for. But it's recognizing healing from our own childhood trauma so we can, like you said, have those conversations or teach our children, whether it looks like therapy, whether it looks like reading some books, whether it's talking with people that have been through the same situations and you realize they kind of healed from it. So just practicing, I would say, mindfulness, self-care, and those, I guess, support networks. Those are very, very important.
yeah, having spaces like this too. It was like the crazy thing for me. Once I started telling people, I'll never forget before I started the podcast, when I got when this man applied for divorce, and I was just coming out of my shell and going back, not necessarily going back out, but finding my zhuzh again. Like I like to work out. I would do pole fitness. I would do pure bar yoga. I'm very active in that way. And I'll never forget I was at pole fitness, which was something he hated me doing. But anywho, I started back going to that, and I found myself going back. Girl, I be walking around. I haven't went because I'm in between contracts and business deals, but I wear my heels around just to keep them calves strong. So, so I'm like, okay, I'm in pole fitness, and I'll never forget talking to one of the young ladies, and I said something about, oh, I gotta go because I gotta get home to my kids, and she's like, you have children? And I'm like, yeah, I have 2 children. At the time, they were much younger than they are right now. And the lady next, and I said, well, divorce will do. She said, oh, well, you look good. And I said, well, getting divorced will do that to you. Because I felt like once the papers got put in, it was something about a glow up. Like I'm gonna do a picture story time on my TikTok because something happened, right? And it was almost like the weight was lifted off of me. I no longer had this dark cloud over me. I no longer like my skin liberation. Yes, Dr. Brooks, she said the liberation.
I see.
My skin started glowing, like the tone started getting even. So even when people like your skin is so nice, it's like I don't know what to tell y'all because I do some things, but I don't do everything. And so the hair started flourishing, like everything just started being better for me. And the lady next to me who's in the class, she's like, "Oh, I'm in the middle of a divorce too." And I was like, "Girl, what?" And she started telling me her story, and I'm telling her my story. And it was kind of like this point. She said it was a detox. It sure was. It sure was a detox because let me tell you something. There's a lot to be said there, but the reality was I started saying something, and people started gravitating to what I was saying. I'm like, oh my God, the whole time I've been suffering in silence, and it's over 100 and some odd people that's like, oh, I've been through that already. I've been through that too. And I'm just sitting back like, bro, what you mean?
Like I'm not the only one. Like
I'm
no.
not the only one. And so then there's that going back to the childhood trauma, releasing yourself from that childhood trauma is realizing sometimes we live in a place of shame, and that's why we don't really want to talk about it. Because a lot of, what happens in this house stays in this house, and oh well, that didn't really happen, or this didn't really happen, and it breeds a level of shame, and then you start to come out of it, you're like, oh, I ain't ashamed of none of this because at the end of the day, it happened.
Yeah, once you release it. Like
Once you release it,
it's almost like that first therapy session. You know how you go in your first therapy session, you put it all back on your shoulder, and you feel weighed down, and you feel so emotional. And
girl, I couldn't even get through the first therapy session when the man say, "Well, what brings you in?"
Boo-hooing.
Balling. And mind you, I started therapy. It was in therapy I recognized that I was being abused by my husband, my ex-husband. But I started going through therapy because of a friendship breakup. But him and I were already having these major, like I could keep going, issues,
Right.
major times infinity issues. So when I had the friendship breakup, I got really depressed. And then he was like, "Oh, you cheating on me," and this, that, and the third. And I was like, "No." And my sister, who was just on the live, I think he even called her and asked her and was like, "Oh, what's she going through?" And she was like, "Yeah, her friend broke up with her." And he didn't even care. He was like, "Oh, okay." And so it was in therapy I started to see like some of the things that I was going through with him was abuse. And then when I kind of like confronted it, which I probably shouldn't have done, when I confronted it, it started to get worse and it started to get physical.
Right.
So there was this turning point. It was like, yeah, that first session, what brings you in? Or even like that second session, they ask you, well, how you doing?
You don't even realize it. You think you're going into this session I'm just going to talk a little bit about. So you go in there, and it's just about going into a room.
My first therapist was like, it's okay to cry. Because I'm like, I don't even know. No, I was like a mess. I was snot. I don't even know why I'm crying.
A whole box of tissue.
I think I felt tears coming out my ears. I was crying so bad. I was like, I don't even know why I'm crying. He's like, yeah, just take your time. I'm like, no, but I got a lot that I got to talk about. Like, I cried for like the first 30 minutes of the first session. And we was on virtual. I was like, dang, wait, what's going on?
Right. I mean, I feel like for childhood trauma piece is one of those things where you got to unpack it. And the more you unpack it, the more you can reveal, you can see, you can talk about it. I would say emotionally intelligent, talk about it. Because initially it's just a situation. And then after the situation, you realize how much it affects everything in your life. And not just parenting, it affects other areas too. Relationships with friends, relationships with family, how much stuff it affects. Yeah.
How much stuff you allow on the job, how much stuff you allow, how much stuff you allow, how much stuff your friends. Yeah, it comes full circle once you start to unpack it. It's almost like that luggage. My luggage was overflowing, girl. The luggage couldn't even zip. And so when he hit that little lock and it bust open, like on the cartoons where they trying to close the luggage and it bust open.
Just like that.
Just like that. But I thank you for coming to chat with me. Yes, on Black Girl Say Something. We got Godiva Goddess. Y'all make sure y'all follow her, gift her up, and all that good stuff. The recap of this will be on the YouTube. Y'all know where to find the links because TikTok don't like us saying links on here. But y'all know where y'all can find the links and tune into the podcast. We air an episode every Friday, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Wherever you listen to podcasts, y'all, I got a little pat on the back I want to give myself. I got a notification from Spotify that I just hit 50 followers on Spotify. I didn't even know Spotify allowed followers. So I don't know what that means, but I just wanted to share that with y'all because I was like, I know people be listening to the podcast on Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and YouTube has a podcast feature now. So it is over on YouTube. And I like that because people can leave comments. Thank you, y'all. Thank you. So yeah, we've been around July 1st, 2022. And July 1st is my mom's birthday. So I launched the podcast on her birthday as sort of an olive branch to our healing. Because a lot of it, while I don't talk a lot about my mom on the podcast, I talk about a lot of my realizations, right? And a lot of things that I've come to learn. And at the end of the day gotta end. So it's like we just want to make the best of it while we here.
Congratulations, that's amazing. And the fact that you have this platform to give others the ability to tell their story and the lessons they've learned in life, I think is amazing. Because like you said, you may have healed from a lot, but now you can help someone else heal, and many heal because you're on those different platforms. So
Yes.
give yourself a pat on the back and a big round of applause. That's amazing.
Thanks. All right, y'all. So I'm about to get up off of here. Godiva, let me drop you off. I'm gonna come back on live because I gotta do my nails, and the people wanted to see me do that. So I'm gonna get back on live. Y'all know every content is life. All right, later.
Later.
Yes, y'all. So I thank y'all for joining me. And don't forget, we're going to come back in June. Every Thursday, we're going to be talking to women in STEAM, which is science, technology, engineering, art, and math. And I might change the M to medicine. I don't know yet. But June 1st, I will be speaking with the National Black Nurses Week. So I'll be going live while I do that. And then we have a special guest who's an engineer for our second. So we need to fill in the other Thursdays with some people who are into the arts, into math and technology. So y'all get the word out there. Until next time, I'm gonna come back on y'all later.